Well, you never see him do it, but apparently he killed the guy that was holding the chicken. So, whatever.
I said it before and I'll say it again. Life moves pretty fast. You don't stop and look around once in a while, you could miss it.
Never fear change. Life is too short for fear. Chase what is desired.
I can do this all day.
Would you mind identifying what you are?
We're the best friends squad.
That's what we call ourselves. Sort of like a team.
Welcome to the rodeo. Ladies and gentlemen, please sit back, relax, and enjoy the ride.
This is the way.
I have spoken.
Welcome to the Skiffy and Fanty Show Torture Cinema.
That feeling when you find out that a new wave band from the early 80s released the perfect song for the century you're now living in. But only that song. They didn't release any other songs.
What are you talking about?
Rima.
Oh, yeah.
Rima, 21st Century. Honestly, listen to the lyrics.
This whole thing is fucking great. I'm Sean.
I'm Jen.
And we are here today for a very special edition of Torture Cinema. And by special edition, I mean just the regular edition for the month, because we are watching a sci-fi musical called Voyage of the Rock Aliens from 1984, starring many people who you probably have forgotten, and also for an inexplicable reason, Jermaine Jackson.
Also, Ruth Gordon of Harold and Maude, thank you very much.
I mean, sure, she's in this, and what's his name? Craig Schaefer?
Craig Schaefer.
Yep, who was in Nightbreed.
One Tree Hill fans.
Whoop whoop! Yeah, and a bunch of other people of varying degrees of unpopularity.
Including Pia Zadora, who was once voted both the best actress and the worst actress for the same film.
And also, by the way, in one of the very first Torture Cinema films we covered, she was in Santa Claus versus the Martians. Had a small role because I believe she played the girl Martian.
Who wants to have Christmas.
Yeah, basically. So she didn't have much of a role. But she got to be in this almost entirely on the basis of the fact that she used to do musical theater.
Yeah, she did have a career as a singer for some time after this, so.
Well, she did do a duet with Jermaine Jackson.
And it's a pretty darn good duet, if you ask me.
Yep.
It makes no sense within the context of this film.
None.
But it's actually the cover of the album for this film, even though it's literally completely unrelated.
Yeah, absolutely unrelated. Yeah, we will get to that, I'm sure, in a little bit, including what I imagine is going to be Jen and I singing various parts of this film. You should not expect what you normally get out of Torture Cinema, because both Jen and I love the absolute shit out of this film. And if you were there for last night's live watch on Discord via our Patreon at patreon.com/SkiffyandFanty, you will have noted that all of us were in agreement that this film is the greatest Torture Cinema film we have ever watched.
Oh, 100%.
It is pure joy.
Yes.
And holy shit, you all should watch it, because it's fucking great.
Yes.
So, with that in mind, Jen, what are you drinking?
I am drinking H2O.
Like the band?
No, in this case, not the band, the actual beverage, water.
Well, that sounds complicated.
I know, it is very complicated, especially for people in our current government system.
Well, so I guess a question I have, right, because that is dihydrogen monoxide, as I recall, correct?
Yes, I've been told that it might cure COVID-19.
It also apparently is one of the most deadly things in the world, and was what comes out of planes in those chemtrails. And you need to watch out, Jen, because you don't want to die of dihydrogen monoxide, because it's super dangerous.
No, I don't. You have to take carefully prescribed dosages as recommended by your doctor.
Yep, just like pretty much anything else in the world, you should not submerge yourself for longer than 10 minutes. You should also not drink more than 15 gallons in a single day.
Oh, it's actually way less than that you should not drink, FYI.
Yeah.
Sean is not a doctor.
Neither
is the President of the United States, though, so never ever take his recommendations for what to take when you have something like COVID-19.
Yeah, I would suggest that water in regular amounts that normal people would drink is probably perfectly fine, and probably does not necessarily have any benefit for fighting COVID-19, but probably will keep you from dying quicker as long as you're drinking water.
Well, staying hydrated is always important.
True. But that's true of like almost any respiratory illness. You always want to stay hydrated. So
it is. And it also is related to the film that we just watched, because in that, the water literally is poison. Actually, it's acid.
It's very much acid. but mutant acid. But we'll come to that, I'm sure, later.
No, it's from acid rain. It's literal nuclear waste acid rain acid.
But with mutating qualities, Jen.
I'm not sure, actually.
There's a giant squid monster in this.
But we don't know if it just moved in. Oh, no, I think they actually say that something mutated it, but whatever.
Yeah, because it just moved in. A fucking
well,
giant
at the end,
squid
it's like,
monster.
I'm out of here, Loch Ness or bust.
That was really cute.
That was very cute.
Was really
okay,
cute.
so what are you
great.
drinking?
Well, I have a very lovely glass of the Bemidji Brewing's Chocolate Peanut Butter Stout. It's the second time I'm drinking it because I do need to go through what I have in my growler because otherwise it will go bad. So I'm drinking that and it's delicious. I'm also drinking it out of a Bemidji State University Centennial glass.
Oh.
Yeah.
Aren't you special?
Yeah, because this university, well, wasn't a university when it opened, but it opened in 1919, and last year was its 100th year anniversary as being an institution of education.
That's pretty awesome. Congratulations to Bemidji State University.
Honestly, it's amazing we've been around this long.
No comment. I would be drinking alcohol, but unfortunately, when I decided to panic purchase, I just got flour and not alcohol. So I feel like I made a really big error there.
That's interesting because when I panic purchased, I didn't really panic purchase, but when I went to purchase, I kept forgetting to get the things that would allow me to bake stuff. But I got lots of stuff that I just like to eat.
I mean, that makes sense.
No, but in any case, I hope everybody, we're being joking, but I hope everybody is safe during all of this. I know it's really hectic and scary. Please take care of yourself, social distance, right? If you can isolate, please isolate. You know, try to limit infections and all that good stuff. And, you know, just hang in there. It's scary. We're all dealing with it in different ways from different positions of life. And yeah, we just want to make sure everybody's, you know, nobody's allowed to die. That's basically what I'm saying.
Yeah.
You're not allowed to die.
Yep, none.
Yep,
None
you can die when Jen and I decide that you're able, and that will be after your 7,000th birthday.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
And then after that, you can haunt us if you want to.
I just feel like Bane from The Dark Knight Rises, where he's just, I'm gonna do it with a thing where he's like, first I will break you, and then I will allow you to die.
Yes, we are now Bane. We are the Bane of podcasts. Wait, that doesn't sound right.
Well, we are also that, yeah. All right, so we got to do this movie. So
Okay.
This movie is, again, 1984's Voyage of the Rock Aliens. It is a sci-fi musical.
Yes.
It is absolute joy. And Jen, would you like to do the honor of explaining what this movie is about without giving away everything?
I will certainly attempt to. We know how terrible I am at these recaps, but essentially it is about a group of aliens that fly around in a guitar shaped spaceship that are studying the universe and trying to, I guess, find the source of rock and roll. The first planet they go to actually is pretty snazzy because it has Jermaine on there. And Pia Zadora, but then they discover Earth. They decide to go to Earth instead because, you know, everybody knows that Earth is the true origin of rock and roll.
Yep.
Although in this movie they get it wrong because they assume that white people invented it. That's not true. However,
No.
Pia Zadora is also on Earth, and she's this small town girl, lives next to an acid lake. And she wants to sing with her boyfriend's band, but he won't let her, because he is the head of, you know, the very dangerous greaser looking, the Pack. And he sings only once with the band though, which is very strange.
Yeah, what exactly does he do?
And the Pack has a band, a rockabilly band, and they're pretty freaking awesome. And of course, the space aliens are also a band. They're like a new wave band,
Like
though,
80s
so.
synth pop, new wavy kind of group, borrowing from late 70s, really like playing off of Devo.
Yeah, they're basically Devo,
Yeah,
but in cooler costumes, if you ask me.
they're very 80s.
So yeah, they come down to this small town. They meet. The head alien falls in love with Pia Zadora. Pia Zadora doesn't really fall in love with him, but she wants to sing with his band. And meanwhile, there's some serial killers that escape from a local mental hospital, and they get up to some shenanigans, and also a giant octopus. And then there's a rock battle at the local cotillion, and the end.
Yeah, I think that does a pretty decent job. This film is simple and also banana pants bonkers at the same time.
Exactly. Banana pants bonkers with elements of West Side Story.
Yeah.
Grease, obviously, which is basically West Side Story.
Footloose. I think before Footloose was Footloose. Isn't Footloose after this?
Yeah, but it's not quite Footloose because it's not like the town minds that there's rock and roll going on. So it's not quite Footloose. It's mostly
It's not
Grease.
quite Footloose. It's Grease meets West Side Story, basically.
Yeah, but I mean, like, the West Side Story bit is mostly like that beginning song.
The beginning part. But it's still there with the aliens.
Sort of, but that's why I say that it kind of turns into Grease. But again, Grease is actually, West Side Story, essentially. So, it's not really, it's like an evolution from there. Like, right? Like, that's the timeline. We had West Side Story, and then we went to Grease, and then we go to Voyage of the Rock Aliens.
I like to describe it as if you took Grease and then you funneled it
Through
into
Devo?
West Side Story through the 80s. Because, like, the whole idea behind this is they're both, like, kind of rebel punky groups. In punky, I'm using very, very lightly here because I don't want to suggest, like, legitimate punk, right? But you have Frankie and his band who are supposed to be sort of like rockabilly, like 50s style sort of rock
both
groups.
styles are born out of the punk movement, though. Like,
rockabilly doesn't come out of punk music. It comes out of classic rock and roll, country, bluegrassy, some of that stuff. That's what rockabilly originally comes from. Maybe this particular group is also borrowing some elements from punk rock. Maybe. But the original genre comes from the 1950s, which is why their whole getup is them looking like they come straight out of the James Dean movie.
You're right.
Yeah.
Sorry, my bad.
Yeah.
I always thought rockabilly was related to sort of punk.
Well, I wouldn't take it away. Imagine somebody with more musical expertise. There might be elements of punk, like 70s punk maybe bleeding in here, because there's a lot of because this is 1984 when this has come out. So like the music of the 80s is in the process of development, and obviously the 80s pulls a lot from things like the 70s and from older musical styles. So there's probably some of that still bleeding over here. But I think that they're going for like it's like that new wavy 80s style, the kind of stuff that you think of like Depeche Mode and all of those, and like Gary Newman and those kinds of people from the 80s are supposed to be the aliens. And they're up against like this 1950s group, which is why I say it's kind of like if Grease came to the present, because like one of the big themes of this film is the conflict that exists between these two groups, right? That there is these guys are supposed to be these rebels that are sort of 50s style, and the irony of them is they're rebelling, but they're just as restrictive as the thing that they rebelled against. And then you get these 80s guys who are also sort of, I guess, rebelling because stylistically they're playing totally different music. And then there's this poor Dee Dee who gets stuck in the middle of it and kind of has to get pulled both ways by the story she's being told. At the same time, she plays some fairly obvious, like, late 70s, early 80s, I don't know what you would call it. Like, we might call it, like, teeny bopper type music today. I don't know what they would have called it at that period. But that kind of, like, Cyndi Lauper type stuff, which is what she kind of gets to play. Yeah.
And it's interesting because there's a lot of like weird little pieces of commentary going along in this movie.
So much.
And I think we'll get into a couple of those things with our likes and dislikes, but let's just say that like this is a pretty simple film. It is Banana Pants. It is hilarious. Like there are some genuinely very funny moments throughout this. There's also some like, what is happening? But, like, there's a lot of interesting sort of tropes that are just kind of getting upended in this, which is, I thought, one of the really fascinating things about this movie, including a sheriff that's played by Ruth Gordon. So you have a woman sheriff who is playing the befuddled, like, slightly
kooky. She's very, like, Like, she believes in aliens, and it's not a question for her. The aliens are up to no good.
Right, and meanwhile, she's completely incompetent. So it's your incompetent sheriff in a small town sort of role. But she's also a creeper because she totally is spying on, like, half-naked men at the beginning, which is hilarious. And it's Ruth Gordon. This is Maude we're talking about. Like, little adorable old woman. And she is amazing. And meanwhile, like, the serial killers, oh my god.
Michael Berryman.
Yes, Michael Berryman, who is always fantastic.
Yep, you know him from things like The Hills Have Eyes. He's usually put in films because of his unusual appearance, because he has something called hypohidrotic ectodermal dysplasia, which I had to make sure that I looked up, which just means that he lacks some of the things that people without that condition would have, things like sweat glands, fingernails, teeth, and etc.
Right.
And so he has a by comparison to others, a very unusual appearance, but yet he often doesn't just play evil guys. Sometimes he plays, like, delightful, delicious little giants, which I think is adorable. Yes. He's in things like X-Files and other stuff as well. And he does play a character that definitely fits his form at first, and then gets subverted. But I'm sure we will come back to this because it's fucking delightful.
I think, this is a big like. This is, I think, one of my favorite things about this movie is that subversion. So why don't we just get into it?
Nope. Because we have to break, if this film breaks many traditions, and so we must break tradition, Jen. Normally we begin with likes and end with dislikes because the films that we watch deserve it. They deserve to have the final word about them be about why they suck. This film, however, deserves to have us discuss dislikes first and end on a happy note, because this film is absolutely delightful and is a treasure that should be preserved in the Library of Congress immediately 100%. And should be shown all around the world.
Yes. All right. What's your first dislike?
First dislike. All right. So this is tough.
It is! I can't think of anything!
It's really tough. So a lot of my dislikes are going to be really minor, because there a lot of the things that you can complain about, like, I'm sure some people will be like, oh, this movie's so terrible because it's so nonsensical. Blah, 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 blah.
This makes more sense than so many of the torture cinema films that we've watched, though.
I mean, for God's sakes, Jen, we watched The Guyver and you fell asleep and didn't know.
Exactly.
Like, you woke up and the same fight scene and thought an hour had passed. And you weren't wrong, because that same fight scene did seem to last for at least an hour. But this film doesn't have a lot of those problems. It's sort of very self-aware that it is a silly film and campy, and it owns it. And so I will say that one of my dislikes is really just a consequence of the filming of this, which is that they made the film, and then they had Jermaine Jackson, who sings the main song, which when the rain begins to fall, as I recall it, I will sing it in a minute, just, you gotta let me work up the nerve. So, Jermaine Jackson sings the male part for that, because Craig Sheffer does not sing that part, even in the film, when he does eventually sing it. And so
he's not a singer. He's hot, but not a singer.
He does look very hot in this, although weirdly I was not attracted to him until the end. We'll come back to that later, I'm sure. But so anyway, so Jermaine Jackson sings this bit. It's great. He sings it with Pia Zadora. It's fantastic. It's a lovely 80s ballad. It's great. But when they filmed it, they went to Italy to film the music video, because the music video was meant to be something different. And so when you watch this film, the very first thing you see, from Earth anyway, is Pia Zadora and Jermaine Jackson in their music video, because they decided, originally they were going to tack it on to the end as a sort of nice little piece, which would have made sense. You could put it in the credits or something, and that would have been adorable. But they decided to tack it on to the beginning, I think because someone was drunk.
No. Apparently the screen tests were terrible, so I think they were like, let's put this in at the beginning because, well, A, people might not make it to the end, and B, maybe people will be more invested if they get into it right at the beginning.
Oh, okay.
I'm not really sure, but that was what I read, was that it was screen tests were just bad for this movie, which I have to say, all those people are idiots.
Yeah, look, the 1980s had many things to offer society, including amazing dress and music and all of that. But in a lot of ways, the 80s were just a waste of time. You all gave us Reagan, so fuck all of you.
Yeah.
Anyway, my dislike is that when you watch this film, the very first thing you get is, oh, this is obviously West Side Story, but it's like a racial version. It's like a black-white. So we're going to get maybe an interracial relationship here, which would have been really kind of neat as a take on West Side Story. I'm sure it had been done before, but it would have been fun in a sci-fi context. And so you have this great thing, and you got this wonderful chemistry between Pia Zadora and Jermaine Jackson. And then we never see Jermaine Jackson again. And I got very confused because I was like, I thought... So what's the narrative here? Is it that she just constantly is fucking off on Frankie and just being like, oh, I'm into these other guys because Frankie will never let me sing in the band?
No. She's actually, that beginning part, in the context of the film, Pia Zadora is not the same, is not Dee Dee in that beginning scene. She's some other random alien. Because that's supposed to be taking place on a different planet.
Okay, look, you're not helping. Because this is just getting more fucking confusing. Because
look, I'm sorry,
okay.
But the motorcycle nuns are amazing.
They are. You thought they were nuns too. I was like male motorcycle nuns. Like, I'm into it. All right, because it's great. The whole opening sequence is great, but there is confusion. So my dislike is really just that it just was confusing, and I wanted more Jermaine Jackson, and I just didn't get it. And I would have liked that to have been tied more clearly into the story. I apparently missed how it was tied into the story, which I'm just going to blame on the fact that I was having a fucking blast and singing the shit out of this song while they were singing it, because it is a fucking great song.
It is a fantastic song. And the music video it's something else.
It's pretty great. It's pretty great. And when the rain begins to fall, you'll ride my rainbow in the sky. The rainbow's his dick, by the way. And I will catch you if you fall. You'll never have to ask me why. And when the rain begins to fall, I'll be the sunshine in your life. You know that we can have it all, and everything will be alright. I can't sing. You're just gonna have to watch it for yourself. This entire soundtrack is on Spotify right now. You can also get it on like Amazon and all these other places. So this is totally available. It's not something you have to like pirate anywhere. You can get it. It's fucking delightful.
Yes, it is delightful.
Anyway, that was my dislike, Jen. It really just turned into a like, and I just don't care. So go. What's yours?
I think, mine is basically the same thing. They're really... Like, I'm trying to go over, like, oh, you know, I could nitpick this and I could nitpick that. But there's that's all there might be, is, like, teeny tiny things to nitpick. Because overall... Okay, I will say this. My dislike is that there is never a gag about the breather's cord, oxygen cord, getting caught on anything.
Oh.
And that's just a missed opportunity. Because they show him, so there's the two villains. There's, what's his name?
Chainsaw. His name's Chainsaw, played by Michael Berryman.
Michael Berryman. And then the breather.
Yep.
So the breather is this guy who's on an oxygen tank. Like, he needs help breathing, which, cool. Like, thank you for showing a disability.
Also, he gets around pretty well. Yeah,
he gets around pretty well. But, like, he has an assistive device. He has to, like, have his oxygen on him to go around and kill people. But, like, when he first comes out, he's dragging his whole contraption, like, with him. And the oxygen cord, which is presumably hooked up to tanks, because unfortunately it's not a fully self-contained mobile unit, is still, like, snaking behind him to the hospital that he's been in. And I really genuinely wanted a gag at some point that just kept showing that cord and, like, showed it wrapped around literally everything in town, because that would have utterly delighted me. And I just kept waiting for it, and it didn't happen. I was like, come on, that would have been the best. And that's honestly, other than what Sean just said, which is like, why don't we get more Jermaine Jackson, is my only complaints. Because there's just so little to complain about this movie. It is, as we've said, a delightful banana pants film.
It absolutely is. And it knows it. That's the important thing.
It knows it.
We've watched films that they're supposed to be comedies or jokes, but like they still kind of sometimes take themselves too seriously, or like they tell jokes that are just not funny. This film is just like, you know what? We know exactly what it is. This is about a period of time. We're going to make fun of that period of time. We're going to have a lot of fun. We're going to have all these like weird tropes, and we're just going to it doesn't matter if it makes sense. It's just supposed to be silly, goofy, fun. And it owns it completely, and I adore it
completely, yes. And one of the, it's fun in so many different ways, because this is like a very sort of atemporal film. What is that when it's like out of time? Ahistorical, maybe? I don't know. Anyway.
Anachronistic,
thank you. This is supposed to be happening in the 21st century, which is why we get the best song
called 21st Century.
Called 21st Century, as performed by the band Rima, that literally released only one song called 21st Century in relation to this film. They were a band before that, and after that, I have no idea how they made it onto this movie. They never released an album. They just released the single for 21st Century. And, like, you can find, like, the lead singer's, like, defunct, like, freaking GeoCities page, but it's one of those, it's a capture where it's like all the stuff that's been lost from throughout the web's history. All there is that capture of this old website that was shut down 100 years ago. Ugh, it's this like pure little nugget. And frankly, their songs are all really good. And so, like, I know they didn't write all of them, but they wrote quite a few of them. Combine Man, I can't even start. Like, it's just
everything about the music. Like, there are a couple songs where it's like, that one's like,
whatever. Yeah, but
there are like some bangers in this. Like,
absolutely.
When I was in the chat last night, so Jeff and Loopy were there, and we were just like sitting there going like, that song was actually really, really good. That could have been on the radio. Like, this is so delightful. That one's a banger. Right. It's so good. This movie is fucking great, you all. I don't know how it has 5.5 out of 10 on IMDb. I don't
You're
fucking
all
get it.
watching things wrong.
You are. You have no joy in your hearts. You are dead inside.
No, like, and Sean gave me a lot of crap for not liking the last movie that I watched, which was that awful, I don't know, whatever it's called, Velocipaster.
Well, but this is better than Velocipaster. I just want to say, this is way better.
Yeah, exactly. This one knows it's campy, but it does just really fun things with that campiness that also, like I said, subvert a lot of tropes. Yeah. And I love that. Like, there's not even anything offensive about this movie except, maybe the fact that, like I said, I wanted Jermaine Jackson to, like, just be in the whole thing. Craig Sheffer's fine. He's hot, but he's a hot white dude. And, like, I just don't need another movie that stars two hot white dudes. Like,
but that's the thing that I think is interesting is we were watching this film, and even when we were like, oh, wow, they're going to do that joke. And then they did it, and then you're like, wait, that was, like, not at all that... Like, we expected, we've watched some other stuff from the 80s where it's like, we're going to do a gay joke, but it's going to be super offensive, or we'll do a trans joke and it's super offensive. There's a scene in this movie when he, so there is an issue I guess you could take with consent here, which is that the alien has decided he's going to wear a device that activates or stimulates the sexual interests of it's supposed to be for Dee Dee. He's trying to seduce, keep in mind, he has literally blown up his body into pieces because she touched him or whatever. And so his head came off and everything. And by the way,
of the best sequences
in the local teen hangout is what it's called. And she touches him and he goes poof, and his limbs and everything and head fly everywhere. And everyone's just sitting there going, oh, well, happened? That's fine. Like, nobody is like freaking
totally
out.
Normal.
It's like, oh, that's no big deal. So they collect his body parts and leave. And so the second time, right, he's like, I'm going to totally earn her heart because I've got to. So he wears this device that's supposed to stimulate her sexual desire, except it's not calibrated correctly. And so her mechanic friend, who I'm sure we'll come back to later, is being hit on by this dweeby guy who I guess is kind of into her because she can fix machines. And all of a sudden, he's going, oh, honey bunch. And he's suddenly really attracted. And then all the men are, and they pile on him. And then the device gets broken because of the weight of everybody. And they all go away. And then literally the moment after.
You have to specify, because you made it sound like they were all attracted to the mechanic woman. But no, they're all attracted to the alien Absid, who's the leader of the aliens.
Yeah.
And it's great. You know, he's like trying to turn it off, like, oh, that didn't work right.
Yeah.
But all the men swarm him because they think he's so hot all of a sudden.
And the best part for me was after it's over, right? It breaks and the spell, as it were, is worn off. They all get up and the mechanic lady, Diane, looks at the guy who'd been hitting on her and says, I didn't know you kind of were into that. And he was like, oh, like I'm not into men, but also that was really interesting. And that's the end of the sequence. And I'm going,
it's the best.
Wow. So keep in mind, this is in the middle of the AIDS epidemic. That's happening right as this film is being released, right? Is AIDS is starting to swarm in the United States. And this has a massive impact on gay culture, essentially, not just because of the deaths and the fear and damage within the gay culture, but also how heteroculture viewed gay culture. This did so much damage to the perception of gay people, the AIDS epidemic. But this film, for some reason, is like, oh yeah, like there's like, yeah, okay, like you should probably shouldn't fuck around with people's sexual interests, and you should just talk to them like a normal person. But also, like, dudes might actually be attracted to other dudes, and that's cool.
And that's okay.
And nobody's bothered. Like, nobody makes fun of him for it. Then nobody goes like, oh, you're a homo or whatever. They're just like, I didn't know you were into dudes. And he's just like, oh, I'm not. But also, that was very interesting. Oh.
It's a whole scene of nothing being made of the fact that all of the men in the restaurant were suddenly gay. And it was fine.
Right.
And that happens consistently throughout this film. That's not the only point in time. Like, the fact that there's a woman who's a mechanic in the first place, and like that's what she's known for.
Don't take it away from me.
And that she can fix things in a dress.
Yep.
I loved the fact that this film was anachronistic because of the fact that, like I said, this is supposed to be taking place in the 21st century, but the town, like, is this weird mix of like 1950s Greece and also a dystopic capitalist future. Yep. Which is like mind-blowing.
But it's also, and Jeff Zellin was saying this in the Discord, and I think he's very on point with this, which was that this film it's like super aware of what the 80s are going to be. Yes. And it's sort of like very much sending it off. Like, it's just like, look, this is the 80s and we're ripping into it now. But like, it's so aware of what the 80s are about to become, because there's even a moment when Dee Dee is like telling, like, she's smart. Like, she's not just an idiot. She like gives us like her whole like socio-political philosophy of the world she lives in, because it is a dystopia where like they've allowed like people to throw toxic waste everywhere. And there's like a point where she's like, we tried to ban it, but like the fine was like $14.95 or something.
$17.50. And then they banned the fine. Yes. And this is, granted, this is 1984. This is after 3 Mile Island and Chernobyl, right?
Sure.
So, like, the fear of nuclear disaster is definitely there, but it's worked into this in a really interesting way, because it's like, oh, there's a nuclear power plant, but then it poisoned the lake, and then the military decided to put in a missile silo underneath the lake because it's poison anyway, but then the acid like melted the missile, so it didn't work anyway, and then they sued us.
It's so aware of the like bullshit economics and environmental politics of its era. And at the same time, also very aware of like the weird eccentricities of 80s music and fashion culture. Like, there's these dance sequences where people are like doing some really strange looking dances to 80s style music. And it's like, yeah, because the 80s are full of like, I'm not kidding. When there was a moment when I was watching this, I'm like, oh, please let there be voguing. Please, for the love of God. Because voguing existed by this point. It had to have. And I got so stoked. I was like, please tell me it's voguing. There's no voguing, which I guess could be my dislike, because they didn't have voguing in the 80s dance-off.
Well, But voguing is very specifically rooted in Black and gay culture.
It's
so like that
within
kind
queer
of
culture, drag cultures of the 80s, especially. If you want to actually learn more about this, there's an amazing, absolutely amazing, but very depressing documentary called Paris is Burning, which is about 80s drag culture in, I believe, New York City, if I recall correctly. And the documentary is being made about the drag pageants that are put on and the different drag houses that people live in. But the film is produced right when the AIDS crisis hits. So like halfway through the film, they suddenly have this huge crisis going on that the film eventually becomes about. It's a fantastic documentary. I cannot recommend it enough. Paris is Burning. Go
Paris
watch
is
it.
Burning, yeah. And then now you have that TV show that I'm totally blanking on the name of, Pose.
Oh, God, I thought you were going to say Tiger King, because everybody's talking about Tiger King, and I was like, that has fucking nothing to do with this.
No, although there's a Cougar King in this one, so, you know.
Yeah, that's true. Oh, yeah. God.
Which, I say that, and you're like, Cougar King? I can hear you saying that to yourself, listeners. And let me tell you, this was one of the most amazing parts of this film.
Okay, that's a bit far.
No, because it's an entire song about
the beast within.
Toxic masculinity and how it's poisonous, essentially.
And okay. We need to get into our likes, because I feel like we could just go. We're just already in it, but like, let's actually do some of this.
We've been talking for 40 minutes, and we've basically just been telling you everything we like for that entire time.
This isn't a torture cinema episode.
It's not.
It's just shoot the whiz. That's all it is. This movie's absolutely fucking great. I absolutely love it. It's gonna be the easiest grade.
Yeah, in the middle of everything that we're going through right now, this was such a ray of sunshine.
God, it was.
Yeah, and keep in mind that, like, I watched Xanadu, too, for our torture cinema, and I was not particularly impressed with Xanadu.
No.
As much as I like some portions of it because it's fun, you know, and Alex and Paul are both big fans of the band that I don't remember the name of because I don't care. This is like to me, the much improved Xanadu, like, because it's a very much in the same vein as in terms of a rock musical sort of 1980s style film, but it's just so much more joyous.
It is.
At every moment, and frankly, it's also better acted and makes more sense in some ways. So,
but they're also, like, on the subject of the acting, if not for the fact that this does contain themes that would be considered more adult, like there's some frank conversation here about sex and stuff. The acting, like, this feels in a lot of ways like it's a film for a younger audience, if not for the theming, because the acting. It's not, I'm not saying that as a diss on the acting. I'm saying that, like, the aliens are acting very childlike, right? A lot of the characters are playing sort of caricatures and cartoons of the things that they're sort of representing.
Yeah, there's definitely some cartoonish moments, yeah.
But it's very aware that that's what it's doing. It's doing this on purpose. And everybody is fitting that role beautifully here. I mean, for God's sake, Craig Sheffer has, like, more abs than I think any Marvel superhero at this point in this film.
Oh, 100%. God. I'm wondering why, you know, so Craig Sheffer is basically a cross between David Boreanaz and
Patrick Swayze.
No.
He's Patrick Swayze.
I mean, he's also a bit of a Patrick Swayze, but he's also Josh Brolin.
Oh.
Like, he easily could have played Thanos, is what I'm saying.
That would have been, that's so great. But only if he sings the song about the beast within. And then he says, 50% gone, snap.
Oh my god, Thanos singing that. That would have made the Avengers so much better.
I'm just seeing it, all those memes about Thanos' ass. Like, that would have fit for this, because he does have a nice ass in this.
Oh, the nicest ass. I mean, it's quite fabulous.
I want to say he has the nicest ass. Me personally, I thought Pia Zadora was, I thought she was very beautiful in this. She's adorable, but also, like, she gets to wear some stuff where I'm like, hot damn, lady. Holy shit.
No, there's actually some really
Great.
fantastic costuming going on in this. And it's fun costuming. Like the 50s dresses are just the coolest. But so is like the new agey sort of alien costumes that the alphabet is wearing, I guess you call them. Yeah, that's what the pack calls them, the alphabet.
They call it like the alphabets or something. I don't remember. Yeah.
Oh, we haven't even mentioned one of the best parts of this movie.
Well, all their names are letters. So there's Absid, who's A, B, C, D, and then there's E, F, G, H, who's Eghef, I guess. Or Eghfus? Efge.
FG. I think he's just FG.
FG. Okay.
And Stovitz and AU.
They say close enough.
The fact that Optimus Prime plays the robot.
Yep, Peter Cullen, the most famous voice of Optimus Prime, is our robot in this. 1359, 1359?
Yes, I think so. And he's amazing. Like his beginning part, because in the beginning he's the only one that's awake.
Right.
On the guitar spaceship.
In the guitar spaceship.
And the guitar spaceship. And he has to like awaken the crew, and the crew are all in the refrigerator.
They're like miniaturized in the fridge.
And they're miniaturized. They're little action figures. And they're adorable. And then they get like reconstituted, I guess.
They get like thrown through like a machine that's just a bunch of tubes, and then they pop out of a tube.
And then the later scene with the Combine Man when they put him through the printer twice.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
It's so silly. It's great.
I want to know who was printing their high def like printers stuff though, because those were really good prints. I just have to say.
Yeah, because they were the two guys who got squished by the roller, the whatever rolly thingy, whatever you call those.
Yeah, the I don't know,
steamroller or whatever. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, and they got smushed, and you got to see the very high definition. Actually, really impressive. I didn't know printing was that good in the 80s.
Neither did I, but it's fantastic, and I'm kind of jealous that they just, I want one.
They're really cool. There's a lot in this that I just want. But okay, let's do some likes, because we've been doing likes, but let's make it official for likes, and I want to get to one of my favorite parts of this whole movie.
Okay. Is it who I think it is? Mechanic girl?
It's her related to the plot line that she's part of. Because a lot of this film I spent going, oh, please let this be true. Oh, please let this be true. And please let this not be true. And I will say that one of my let this not be trues didn't come true because the thing that I wasn't expecting happened. And we may come back to that later. But this was one of them, which is there's a very strange moment in this when one of the aliens is at a mental institution and he's trying to get in and he can't get in. And the two mental patients escape, one of them named Chainsaw and one of them named the Breather, which we've already mentioned, and the chainsaw guy literally chops his way out and they escape.
Oh my god, that scene terrified me. Can I just say that? Like, because that's a live chainsaw, like chopping out wood directly around an actor, and he's not even an actor, he's one of the bandmates from Rima, and like he is brilliant in that scene. I just have to say that.
He does a great job.
Great job.
But anyway, so they escape, right? And this is it's just in the middle of the film. It's just like, I was not expecting this to go there, right? And they escape and they eventually buy like an absolute banana pants amount of guns.
Oh my god.
And then they're
American
like wandering through
culture.
town. It's like gun culture. There's a very awareness of that. But anyway, so there's this whole thing and they decide to go to the Heidi High School because there's a big band event, music event.
Heidi High.
Yeah. Which is what they do because they can't do anything else because there are no jobs apparently. And so they decide they're going to terrorize all the people there and start killing. And oddly enough, don't actually kill anyone, although they chase them. And at one point, Diane, who is our mechanic woman, who's one of the best characters in this whole thing.
Yes, and she played John Larroquette's wife, I think, in the John Larroquette show, if anybody remembers that.
Or if you remember Friends, she was Joanna, who was Rachel's boss at one point, who had a fling with Chandler and did eventually handcuff Chandler to a chair in her office, naked.
Oh, yeah. See, I never watched Friends. I did watch the John Larroquette, so big fan.
Oh, well, fair enough. But anyway, so Diane is this absolutely fantastic character. She's friends with Dee Dee, and she's just all over the place. But she turns out to be kind of a mechanic whiz, right? She's
A simple yes or no would have been fine.
But she's great, right? Because she's essentially kind of like the Rose Tycho of this story, if we're thinking of a modern reference, right? She's very competent. She's putting on all of these community events and putting all this stuff on. And then there's a point when she's being chased by Chainsaw, played by Michael Berryman, right? Who is evil, and he's getting her. And there's a point when his chainsaw busts. Right, the chain comes off, and he's like, oh, and he gets mad, and he's like, oh, could you hold on? He's trying to fix it, and she's like, oh, you don't know how to fix it? Well, I'm going to show you. And she sits...
No, it's even better than that.
Okay, come on.
Because
just ruin my life, that's fine.
No. Because at first he's like, could you hold on a minute? And she's like, oh, yeah, sure.
No big deal.
And then he gets more frustrated, and he throws it on the ground. And that's when she gets mad, and she's like, that is no way to treat your tools.
Yeah, okay. Fair enough, Jen. Thank you for correcting me.
But it was so wonderful. I loved it.
But anyway, so she goes up, and the whole time I'm thinking, oh, she's going to fix this for him. She's going to show him. More importantly, she's not just going to do it. She sits him down, and she's like, come here and sit down. I'm going to show you how to do this, and all of it. And she's fixing it and all of these things, right? And the whole time I'm thinking, oh, please let them, like, become friends or, like, get together. Like, please. Like, this is so sweet. I just want this to happen. Please. And as the scene goes on, eventually he starts to, like, have this, like, respect for her. And he's like, wow, this woman's really kind of great. Like, I'm kind of sad that I was trying to kill her a moment before. And he's so excited. And then she fixes it and gives it to him. Meanwhile, Pia Zadora... Pia Zadora, Dee Dee and Frankie are running from the giant tentacle that has been hinted at throughout the movie. There's this giant tentacle monster that comes from
It turns out it's much bigger than we thought.
Much bigger.
By the way.
Massive. And so they're in, like, the gym of Heidi High, like, trying not to get it. And anyway, so the chainsaw's fixed, and so she's like, oh, chainsaw, give it a try. And he does. And then it turns out he's sawing through the wall that leads into where the tentacle's attacking Frankie and Dee Dee, and then she's like, well, save them. And he does. He in fact saves them, and he fights the tentacle off, and it's this really cute thing. And I just got so excited because I just needed the wholesomeness. I needed it so bad.
It was a interesting parallel too, because keep in mind that, like, this whole time, this is, like, really a story about Dee Dee's relationship to Frankie, because Frankie's the head of this, like, the pack, and they're kind of assholes, and he kills
they're
people
like a gang,
too, apparently.
Basically.
And he beats them up, and she's like, I love you, but that really bothers me, and I need you to change. And he's like, no, basically, right? But he does change. He gives up the pack, who don't like that very much, but, you know, he tries to disband the pack, and he goes to Dee Dee, and he's like, I love you, and she loves him, and all this stuff, right?
No, more importantly, he says, from now on, I'm only going to do duets, because one of the complaints was she wanted to be able to sing in his band. He's like, no, you can't sing. It's my band, even though he doesn't do anything in the band. And so he says, we're going to do it. And he starts by going, it'll be Frankie and Dee Dee. He's going to say that, and he says, no, it'll be Dee Dee and Frankie. It's adorable, and they do sing a duet together, and it's cute.
But meanwhile, that's essentially the storyline that happens between Chainsaw and Diana, because Chainsaw is a mass murderer, supposedly.
Supposedly. We've never seen him actually murder anyone.
Well, you never see him do it, but apparently he killed the guy that was holding the chicken. So, you know, whatever. But apparently Frankie kills people too, because, like, that's what Pia is, like, Dee Dee is complaining about the whole time, is that you just, you know, you solve everything with violence, you just kill people or have the pack kill people. So here's Chainsaw, who literally had to go to prison or a mental institution for killing people with the chainsaw. And then he literally, like, after saving everybody, Diana is like, do you want to go for a walk? And he's like, yeah, actually, sure, that sounds great.
It's so sweet.
And then she makes him set aside his chainsaw, and he does.
It's so sweet.
It's literally a parallel relationship. I'm just saying.
I love it so much. And I love it because, like, this is a thing. Like, Michael Berryman has a very long career of, like, his looks being his defining characteristics. Not his acting, not any of those things. Not about... Everything I've heard about Michael Berryman is that he's a really sweet man. He's just a lovely person, and he just happens to be in a lot of horror movies because he looks the part. He looks unusual. And I love that that's not an issue right? What for them, it's like, no, he really respects her because she didn't just fix it. She sat down with him and showed him how to do it, and he was like, oh, this woman's like really taking time and like thinking about me and all. And he's like, we don't get a lot of his internal dialogue, but you can kind of see on his face of like the respect and the appreciation he has.
Michael Berryman is a really excellent actor, so
he's underrated, I think, in a lot of
very
ways.
Underrated.
He does have a very expressive face.
What happened to the breather, though? I missed that.
He kills the like principal.
Well, I don't think. Oh, that's right. That's like the last thing he's basically in. He doesn't kill him. He just knocks him out so that the dance can continue. So he's a hero.
Yeah, but they basically dance on his body. He definitely got trampled to death.
This movie is so amazing.
He tries to kill Frankie.
He does try to kill Frankie, but I don't remember if anything happens after that. It's just like Frankie escapes.
Oh no!
Frankie
cuts his air.
Frankie.
Yeah, remember because he's trying to stab Frankie.
Yeah, I mean,
and he does
that.
multiple times cut Frankie's like vests multiple times.
Oh,
and Frankie's like, Dee Dee, run, like get out, and she wants to help, and she's like, no, just go and save yourself. And he's like fighting this guy, and then he gets him, and then I can't remember what he says. He's something like, oh, that's unfortunate, or like, oh, that sucks, or something. And then I think he dies because he doesn't have oxygen.
I missed that, and that's really sad.
It's sad, but also it's interesting because we have these two characters who are presented to us as being they're I guess friends, but they're both supposed to be really bad dudes. And only one of them stays a bad dude until his death. The other one changes. And I think that's an interesting dynamic because oftentimes like these kinds of characters don't get those kinds of redemptions. This is a odd story in that we have
very
people
odd
who do
redemption too.
Yeah,
but
it is a reduction. But it's a musical and it's silly and
Exactly.
But anyway, so like this is all my like is I just was so happy for that story because I really like Michael Berryman, everything I've seen him in. I actually like him when he's not just being evil and he gets to actually like do something that's a little bit outside of what he's known for. And in this, he got to kind of subvert his own existence, which is really interesting given that so much of his career has been that up to this point. And so I love that subversion, and I love that a lot of the romantic relationships in this story don't follow the pattern we're used to for torture cinema films, which is there's usually not a lot of give and take. There's not a lot of sort of mutual respect. There's a lot of a borderline abuse. This, it begins abusive because he's literally trying to kill her, which not good. Probably not a great way to get a date. But he doesn't come at her from the same way as that other guy did in the local teen hangout. Right, where he's just like really hitting on her hard. He's just sort of like, I would like to spend some time with you. That would be nice, And I like that.
Yeah, and that goes to my general overall like, which that this film, and it's really 2 likes, but you know what? Go fuck yourselves. I don't care. I'm doing what I want because I love this movie. Okay, is the fact that not only is it subverting a lot of like traditional storylines, it's also like the commentary, both mostly political commentary that's going on is really fascinating. And we talked a little bit about that with the nuclear waste and everything. And then I mentioned the fact that there's this really brilliant sort of satirical takedown of American gun culture because these 2 serial killers literally are allowed to buy as many guns as they want enthusiastically.
Including claymores.
Like, the guy just loads them up. Like, oh, do you want more? And, the only thing we have left is the bazooka, but that won't be in for a week. And you're like, what the hell is even happening right now? Like, but that's essentially, especially in the 80s, that's how it worked. There were no restrictions on gun purchases whatsoever.
Well, there were restrictions. The assault weapons ban existed by this point.
By the 1980s?
Yeah, as I recall.
No, not until 1986. There was a Gun Control Act in 1968, but it just regulated interstate commerce.
Oh, I stand corrected.
Yeah, no, like the early 80s, like guns were you could literally just get whatever the frack you wanted, and it was terrifying, frankly, to me. But yeah, so you have that. You have this really interesting piece where, as we said, so like the alien becomes attracted to Dee Dee. Absid, the alien, becomes attracted to Dee Dee, even though like his culture doesn't actually, they take your emotion away, and that's something that everybody agrees to and is good about their culture in their eyes. He's very honest about that to her, like when he finally takes her to his ship because she's ready to become a band, join his band, but she's not actually. He asks, "Are you in love with me?" And she's like, "I don't know, I think I am," like whatever. But then she goes back to Frankie, and Absid, instead of like being angry about it or anything like that, because he says that he's going to have to be recalibrated essentially, because he's clearly feeling emotions. So he has the capability to feel anger towards her for being rejected, but he doesn't. He's like, you know what? Okay, fine. I'm going to make life actually easier for you.
Yeah.
And he fixes everything. Like the pack get turned into Boy Scouts. Literally Boy Scouts. Let's go see if Frankie and Dee Dee want to go pick flowers with us.
I love
great.
this movie.
He fixes all the water and the environment. Like it's pretty amazing, frankly. So you have this like positive portrayal of healthy adult relationships. I mean, granted, the Frankie Dee Dee relationship at the first is like not the healthiest, but she breaks up with him. She's like, this can't continue. Like, I'm attracted to you. I love you, but you're not healthy for me. And there's no give and take in our relationship. So she leaves him, and that's when she goes to Absid, and then she leaves Absid, and he's like, okay, cool. I want you to be happy.
And this is when Frankie does some reassessment of himself. He's like, oh,
yeah,
you're right. There's a lot of things bad about me. I need to fix myself. And he does, admittedly, very quickly.
Exactly. And he sings the song that the Beast or whatever it's called, and it's basically about him, trying to keep up the status quo, and I can't even remember the lyrics, but it says something about like the status quota, which I was like, oh wow, that's actually a really good lyric.
It's great.
But he's basically talking about how the normal expectations of who he's supposed to be are bad.
Mm-hmm.
And I was shocked. I'm sitting here watching. It's hilarious, too, because it's basically him wandering around shirtless.
With a
looking
cougar.
super hot.
With a mountain lion.
A cougar. With a mountain lion. And he's at first singing to a giant portrait of Dee Dee that's in his giant locker, which is velvet lined. I don't even know, but it's amazing. And there's two like women dressed up like cats and like dancing around. So that's the scene that this is playing out around. And yet here he is talking about how this uncontrollable beast, is actually kind of bad. And I was like, what is even happening here? Because that happens throughout this film. Like,
constantly.
Talking about Diana and Chainsaw. Like, you're expecting Chainsaw really to like pick up the chainsaw and then go after her again. And that doesn't happen. He ends up saving the day. And one of the things that happens that is actually just because they decided that it was too gory, is the bubbles coming out. Oh my god! Thank you for the bubbles.
Oh, of the squid monster when he chops off the tip of its arm, little bubbles come out.
And it blows bubbles, and it's adorable. And then it leaves and it goes to Loch Ness because
Loch Ness or bust.
That happens a lot in this
Constantly.
movie. And it was so delightful and refreshing and unexpected. So even though, like, for literally the first, I don't know, third of the film, I just sat there blinking, like, what is oh my god, I'm serious. I'm still not over the panty dancing scene.
It's so strange. Like, what's happening?
It's so strange.
Because it's just that, for those who don't know, there's a musical sequence with Diane and Dee Dee, but it begins by showing the legs underneath the stalls in a bathroom of women who are using the toilet, which means, of course, that their undergarments have come down around
they're down around their ankles.
Although all the way around their ankles, which I don't think is a thing that I've not been in many women's restaurants, but I'm going to assume, Jen, that that's not a common feature.
That's actually a totally common feature.
Oh, I stand totally corrected. Apparently normal. But yeah, so they're kind of like dancing with their legs as the
How
song.
are you gonna like spread your legs if your panties are like around your thighs? I'm just saying.
Honestly, Jen, I have been going
Do you not
commando
poop?
style for like 15 years.
Okay, well that was the best part of that because not only does one woman wear boxers, another woman doesn't have any panties on at all. Clearly.
I missed that.
Did you notice that?
I missed
Oh
it.
my god. So I'm like watching this going, what is even happening here? What is this scene? And it's Dee Dee talking about how she's like super attracted to Frankie. Hence after that, when Diana says a simple yes or no would have been fine. But it's great. There's like 6 women and it's their feet and ankle and their underwear, but it's like going past them one by one, showing like this really cute foot dance sequence with their panties. And like I said, so it's all different variety of panties until you get to the last one, and then there's no panties, and you're like, going commando, yeah.
Nice.
And I just loved the little details like that are utterly absurd, but so much fun.
I mean, that really gets to, when we get right down to it, this is the film in a nutshell. It's so much fun. And there's a lot we could say, but we have been recording for over an hour now, and
Yes.
I don't think we can just keep going on and on and on and on.
About every little thing that we love. I mean, we could literally start at the very beginning and those freaking amazing glasses.
God, they're great.
That Pia Zadora is wearing because, oh my god.
Yeah, that's great. This film is wonderful. So I think this is the time when we have to get to our final thoughts and grade.
I'm not going to bother with final thoughts because I think I've just been giving final thoughts like this whole time. Like I said, it is utterly delightful. It is a ray of sunshine that you need in your life literally right now during the worst timeline.
Mm-hmm.
Usually this show is about us watching a movie so that you don't have to. Well, this may never happen again, but for sure this one time, I am telling you, we will put a link to it in the show notes. Go watch this movie. It is worth every moment of batshit delight that you will sit through. And plus, then afterward, you can just listen to the soundtrack on repeat on Spotify because both bands, both Jimmy and the Mustangs, real band, and Rima, real band, who only released one song, both just wonderful. Totally different styles, but both wonderful. And listen to it and just have joy.
So you said I wasn't going to give final thoughts, but then you just went on like a minute and a half ramble.
Exactly. Go fuck yourself. I don't even care. I get to do what I want. My podcast.
What's your grade?
My rules.
Grade?
A. A plus.
A
A plus. A fucking plus.
Wow. Okay.
A plus. Loved it.
You're adorable, Jen.
Thank you.
You're great. All right, well, my final thoughts are basically the same thing, which is you should watch this movie. It is absolutely delightful. You may need this in this time of struggle and fear and terror and all of that that's going around. This film is a wonderful reprieve from all of that, and I would strongly recommend watching it. It is on Vimeo, and I'm sure you can find DVDs and stuff if you want to own it, which I would recommend because you should be able to watch this whenever you want. So I will also give it an A+ because I would watch this again. I would make this an annual Skiffy and Fanty event where we go to some convention and we just put this show on and we just fucking enjoy it. We turn this into the new Rocky Horror Picture Show.
This would be an amazing version of Rocky Horror Picture Show.
Wouldn't it?
Yeah, there's some amazing costumes. I mean, nothing can beat Rocky Horror Picture Show, but I think you could make some really fun times. Like, for instance, when Chainsaw tries to kill the cop with the egg beater.
That whole fight scene is so silly. It's great. It just gets increasingly smaller weapons. And there's randomly an old guy asleep in the room.
The janitor.
The janitor.
He's just sleeping.
He just sleeps through it.
Oh my god.
It's so ridiculous. And then he tries to kill him with a toothbrush, and he just brushes his teeth too much.
Oh, Oh my god, I must have missed that part. I didn't realize
that's the last thing he gets, is he gets a toothbrush, an electric toothbrush.
I thought it was whipped cream.
And, well, I'm sure that's what they used.
It might have been, but since he had just had the beater, I assumed that he had whipped cream.
No, the last weapon he uses is an electric toothbrush, and it foams it so much, and then he like goes,
oh my god!
But he's not dead;
Oh
he's
my
fine.
God.
And so when you see
No,
him
he's fine.
later, he's got all of the white bits still on his chest, and it's so silly, and it's kind of adorable.
Oh my god! And everybody has to bring a picture of Clint Eastwood to kiss when the sheriff kisses it, because
Correct.
that was just such a nice touch. Even though I hate Clint Eastwood for being a trash human being, it was such a nice touch.
This whole film, there's everything about this is just beautiful. It is one of the most wholesome films we've ever watched.
I love that the sheriff, the only reason she sees the alien ship is because she's peeping on a hot guy doing workouts. And, like, she gets so excited that she accidentally bumps the spyglass.
Yep.
And it's a telephone booth transporter!
I know!
Oh my god.
It's so aware of the era it's being made in. It's so aware.
Oh, and by the way, Optimus Prime fights off a dog with a squirt gun, so...
Yep. He plays as a fire hydrant.
So yes, go watch it.
It's great. Absolutely. And thank you so much for letting us watch this film. We appreciate it so much. This was an absolute blast.
And Duke was grumpy today. I don't think he's grumpy anymore because we just laughed for the last hour almost solid.
Well, give it some time. I'll be grumpy again in a minute.
That's okay. Just watch Voyage with Rock Aliens again and everything will be fine.
I will blast it so my neighbor's annoying fucking music will be drowned out by...
Oh my god.
When the rain begins to fall.
What's the 21st century? We had the world in our hands.
And then we dropped it.
And then we dropped it.
It's so great.
We had the world within our hands. And then we went and dropped it. And they literally drop a globe. It's brilliant.
It's great.
Brilliant.
Go watch this film, guys. Seriously, all of y'all need to go watch this film. It's fantastic. So, as always, you can support us in a number of ways. You can find us at skiffingfanny.com. If you have comments, you can leave them there on this particular Torture Cinema episode. I think technically this is episode 100, although it was not meant to be episode 100 because we did a special pandemic edition. So, yeah, I think we will officially celebrate 100 when we do it next month. But we will say that it is nice that technically the 100th episode, assuming this is the one that goes up next, is this episode, given that it is full of joy. So, anyway, skiffingfanny.com. You can check out the newsletter, skiffingfanny.com/newsletter. You can find us on the Twitters if you'd like to let us know what you think about this film or what we had to say about it, at skiffingfanty, skiffingfanny@gmail.com if you'd like to send us an email. We're also on Patreon and would appreciate your support there, patreon.com/skiffingfanty. And obviously you get access to things like our speculative dispatch, and also we do live watches of our Torture Cinema films and have Torture Cinema polls that all people get to vote on. So if you'd like to have an opinion, or even to suggest films you'd like us to cover, or themes for Torture Cinema films, that's always possible there. So yeah, that's the ways you can support us. We appreciate it. Reviews obviously are always lovely. And yeah, that kind of does it.
Can we start a new show that's called Joy Cinema? That's next.
That's next, of just picking films that we find utterly delightful?
Yes.
I mean, I suppose we could try that, Jen. I don't know.
This will be episode number 1 of Joy Cinema. And then we'll have an episode 100 of Torture Cinema with an actually bad movie, maybe.
I will create a brand new feed for Joy Cinema, and this will just
Joy
be the
Cinema.
only film in it.
Yeah!
But in any case, more from us coming soon-ish. We're keeping it. We're keeping it on. So.
Yep. Keeping on.
Yep. So thank you all for joining us, and thank you, Jen, for being here with me for this utterly delightful episode.
Thank you for being here for this utterly delightful episode.
Okay, and on that note, awkward ending and scene.
Bye.
If you would like to support this podcast, you can do so at patreon.com/SkiffyandFanty. You can also find us on our website, skiffyandfanty.com, and on Twitter at skiffyandfanty. If you'd like to send us an email, you can do so at skiffyandfanty@gmail.com. The music for this episode comes from Sphere by Creo. You can find out more about their music at freemusicarchive.org.